Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's been a long time, actually, only about a couple of weeks since we uploaded a new video, but I've been meaning to do an election prediction in 2024 for November for a long time between Trump and Biden. It's basically been obvious who the candidates were going to be. It became pretty much official a couple of weeks ago, but I still wanted to hold out because I don't know if you've noticed, but Trump has maintained a solid lead in polling pretty much since like the end of summer of 2023 last year. And I kind of wanted to wait and see that now that the two candidates, Trump and Biden, have become the official nominees, whether or not that would change. Because, polling before, the summer usually, because that's when the conventions are, is usually kind of out there. But this is a very unique scenario since we know the candidates already. Both of them have been president, and now we have the nominees decided in the spring. So it's been about a month and a half or so since it became official, although it's still technically not. Both Trump and Biden are the presumptive nominees, and polling has shifted slightly towards Joe Biden, but not a whole lot. We'll have to really see how that changes as the year goes on. Trump still maintains the lead in most polls. So with that, I decided, you know what, it's nearing the end of April. It's time to start uploading videos again about the 2024 election, and we've waited long enough to see if there's a shift in the polls. So let's start by filling out the safe states for each of these candidates. And if you're new, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to hopefully be the first of many new videos that are coming out. The safe states for Trump include basically all the safe red states across the middle, southern, and I guess you'd say like Pacific Northwest, kind of that Great Plains, not Texas, excuse me. We'll put Alaska as safe, and I think Maine's 2nd District will be safe for Trump, as well as the state of Iowa. Iowa is a state you could make an argument. Maybe it'll be likely. It's a very pro-Trump state. He flipped it in 2016. He's won it big in 2020, but he won it by like 8 points both time. I think it moves a couple points to the right. I think he wins it by about 10. He campaigned a lot there in Iowa, and polling has him doing very well there. So we're filling out the safe states for Biden now. Pretty much the entire Pacific Coast, as well as New England and the Eastern Seaboard, Illinois, Colorado, New Mexico, and Maine's 1st District, but not Maine at large. And I think that's going to be it. So these are the safe states for each candidate, Trump and Biden. No matter what you do, they're going to vote for Trump and Biden by over 10 points. I use 10 points as my margins, but I got to keep refreshing myself. It's been a while since we made one of these. So let's start by filling out the likely states for each candidate. We'll start with Joe Biden's likely states. They are Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, and the state of Maine. Minnesota, we'll start there. Minnesota is a Rust Belt state. Trump almost won it in 2016. Minnesota has not voted Republican since like 1972 when Nixon won it in his landslide. It's always been a very blue state. Trump has made gains in the Iron Range in the northern part of the state with white working class voters, but he's lost a lot of ground in the Minneapolis suburbs, and unfortunately the Minneapolis area is the part of the state that's been growing in population, and it's moving left off a cliff. It's very college educated, very left wing. So while I think Trump maybe does a little bit better in Minnesota, he lost it by like 6 or 7 points in 2020. Maybe he does like a point better. I still think it goes to Biden by 5-6 points. Virginia is a state that I originally had written off for Trump for a long time. I thought he'd lose it by a safe margin, 10 points like he did in 2020. Virginia used to be a Republican state, then a swing state, and then Biden won it in a landslide in 2020. But Glenn Youngkin won the governorship just a year later by a couple of points, and Republicans have done very well in the state of Virginia since then. They haven't like dominated there, but they've been very competitive. They've won a couple of seats here and there. They pretty much control the like statewide elected officials, the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, stuff like that. And they did very well in the midterms, all things considered, in terms of how well Republican congressional candidates did in Virginia. In last year, in 2023, in the state midterm elections, Republicans did fairly well. I think Trump does a little bit better in Virginia than he did in 2020, probably only by a couple of points. I think Biden probably still wins it by like 8 or so. New Hampshire is a state that Trump almost won in 2016. Similar to Minnesota and Virginia, fell off a cliff in 2020. Biden won it by about 5-6 points. New Hampshire does not like incumbents. It's sort of a weird state politically. It's in New England, which is usually a very left-wing part of the country, but New Hampshire's always been slightly more conservative, especially on the local level. But there's a lot of people from Boston moving to New Hampshire. Trump did not do very well there in the primary, all things considered, against Nikki Haley. He only won there by like 10 points. It was like 54-44, something like that. Polling does not look very good there. It's a very college-educated state, so I think Trump loses it by like 5 or 6 points. Maine at large could be interesting. Maine is a very white, very working-class state. It's a state that Trump on paper could do well in, but it's always been sort of a blue state. Republicans have not done very well there in like statewide elections recently. But Trump has specifically did pretty good there in 2016. In 2020, he lost a little bit of ground, but in rural Maine, he still did very well. I think he'll make some progress, especially because I think RFK will take a lot of votes from Biden. Maine is a very independent-minded state. I think it's going to shift a good amount to Trump, but I think Biden still wins it. So let's find the likely states for Trump. They are Ohio, Texas, Florida, and that is it. We'll start in my home state of Ohio. Ohio, you can make an argument for being safe. It's one of the most Trumpian states in the country. Used to be a swing state, voted for Obama twice. Trump won it in a landslide in 2016 and 2020. Republicans have done very well in the state of Ohio pretty much ever since 2016. They usually did, like, even going back further, but since 2016 especially, Republicans have done very well. I think because Sherrod Brown is on the ticket for the Senate race, it'll encourage Democrat turnout. I think that this will be the last cycle Democrats really contest Ohio, so I think it'll just barely be under 10. Trump probably wins here by like 8 or 9. Texas is a state I originally thought Trump would have some trouble with. He was his polling in 2020. A lot of people thought Texas would flip in 2020, and polling initially did not look too great for Trump in the state. But Biden is just so unpopular. Trump has made a lot of gains. He's won back a lot of voters, and he's done very well with Hispanics in the southern part of the state. The immigration crisis has pushed a lot of voters who were originally they weren't big fans of Trump, and now they're sort of just neutral with him, even supporting him. Polling has Trump up pretty big in Texas. Trump dominated in the primary just a month or so ago, and so because of that, I think Texas will vote for Trump by like 5, 6, maybe even 7 points. He might even do a little bit better. I think at worst he still wins it by like 5. He won it by like 5.6 in 2020. Instead of Florida moving right off a cliff, DeSantis won there by like 19 points in 2022. I don't think Trump does that good. I think he wins it by like high single digits, maybe like 6, 7, 8 points. There is the abortion referendum on the ballot there that could inspire Democrat turnout, but still, Trump is well liked there. It's his home state. There really wasn't any opposition in the primary. You'd think DeSantis being the governor, the beef between Trump and DeSantis, you'd think that would have an effect in the primary. It really didn't. DeSantis only got like 2% of the vote. He had dropped out, but still, if there is really that many Republicans who were anti-Trump in Florida, you would have seen that in the primary. And Trump's been leading in the polls there pretty handily. So now these are the remaining states that are going to be very competitive, in my opinion. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and Nebraska's 2nd District. We'll start by filling in the lean states for, should we just go east to west? What should we do here? Let's go east to west. We'll start in Pennsylvania. I think Biden narrowly wins here. Actually, that's more of a tilt state, I'm going to be honest. I have that as tilt. But we'll just do, these are the close states. We'll just do tilt and lean. Because I think other than like 1 or 2, they're tilt. So Pennsylvania, I think Biden wins narrowly. This is the one state that, although Trump has done very well in the polls, he has still been struggling there. I think it's going to be razor thin either way, but I think the Philadelphia suburbs are going to keep moving left. I think Trump will do better in the western part of the state, like near Scranton area. Biden did very well there in 2020. I think Trump will make gains there, but I think the Philly suburbs are going to continue to move to the left. I think rural Pennsylvania will still turn out for Trump, if not move even further to the right. I can see Trump winning the state. I'm not saying that's like impossible for him to win. It's a tilt state, but at this time, I just think Biden is favored. I don't like I don't like what I'm seeing in terms of the polls and turnout and stuff like that. We'll go on to North Carolina. That's going to lean to Trump. Really not a whole lot to say there. North Carolina has always been a lean Republican state. Trump won it by like 3 in 2016. He won it by like 1.5 points in 2020. He's up big in the polls there. Republicans in North Carolina are very competent. They do a great job at ensuring Republicans win. I don't see how Trump could lose the state. I mean, he won it in 2020 when he had everything going against him. Georgia flipped in 2020. But North Carolina, even with the Dems' turnout operation, Trump still managed to win it narrowly. Biden is nowhere near as popular in the state as he once was. I don't think Trump wins it by like a lot, but I think he does a little bit better there by like 2-3 points. We're also going to put the state of Georgia in the lean Republican column. It's kind of funny. I would not have done this not very long ago. I thought Georgia was gone for Republicans, but I think that I looked at it just now. Biden has not led a poll conducted in the state of Georgia since August of 2023. It's been almost a year, and Trump is up big there. He's getting close to 50%. Biden he's lost a lot of support in the in the Atlanta suburbs and urban Atlanta. Biden flipped Georgia in 2020 because black turnout was just incredibly high in the Atlanta area, and Biden is nowhere near as popular with African American voters as we've seen. Black turnout is going to be lower than it was in 2024 than it was in 2020. Trump will still get his great margins in the rural areas, and I think he might at least hold the line in the suburbs. I don't think they're going to move super far to the left. If anything, some of them might move a little bit right, especially in the exurbs. I just don't really see how Biden can hold the state considering how well Trump is doing. Democrats and some of their funding have even started to abandon Georgia, and that's not going to change. I mean, Georgia is still going to be hotly contested, but as of now, I do think Trump is favored. Move up to Michigan, that's going to tilt Republican, kind of a mix of two factors. One is that I think a lot of white working class voters are going to turn out for Donald Trump. They always do. In 2016, they did. In 2020, they did. Although in 2020, Biden benefited from a lot of high black turnout in the Detroit area, as well as Trump struggling in the suburbs in a place like Grand Rapids. I think Grand Rapids and like Oakland County, which are suburbs, I think they might move a little bit to the left still, but I think white working class voters in like Saginaw, Flint, and Macomb County, they'll move to the right. I think black turnout will be way lower than people expect in Detroit. You have the whole thing with Dearborn. The Arab American voters have no interest in voting for Biden. I think that all those factors combined, Trump narrowly flips Michigan. It's one of his best states in polling right now. Is that going to change as we get into the election season? I mean, yeah, it's possible, but right now, I do think that Trump is favored in Michigan. If you look at all those factors combined, I think Trump is. Don't think he's going to lose too much ground in the suburbs. I think he's going to get very strong turnout in the rural areas. He'll make gains with white working class voters in like Flint, and black turnout and Arab turnout will be lower in the Detroit, Dearborn, that part of the state. Wisconsin, I'm also going to put as tilt for Donald Trump. Even in 2022, which was a year Republicans struggled in, Ron Johnson still won his re-election by about a point or so. And he did better in rural Wisconsin. I think that the WOW counties are basically maxed out for Democrats. If you look at the demographics of them, the suburbs of Milwaukee used to be Republican strongholds. They've moved to the left a little bit in recent years. But if you look at in 2022, even with the whole Roe v. Wade effect, they really didn't move that much to the left. Ron Johnson and Tim Michels did fine there. In the rural areas, it was where Democrats made a bit of gains, and obviously Madison. I think turnout in Madison might be a little bit down for Biden just because of the whole Gaza thing and the war. I think Trump will make gains with voters in rural Wisconsin, and even if he does lose a little bit of ground in the suburbs, I do think he's narrowly favored to take the state. I think black turnout will also be much lower in Milwaukee. Nebraska's 2nd District, this is basically Omaha and its suburbs. It's an area moving very far to the left. I'm going to put that as lean to Joe Biden. I think it's possible Trump wins it, but I think it's very unlikely. I mean, these are basically just the city of Omaha and then its suburbs, which have been moving left rapidly the last couple of years. Biden won it by, I think, 5 or close to it in 2020. I don't see how Trump makes up for that, even after they redistricted it a little bit. It is only one electoral vote, but I do think Biden's favored there. I honestly don't see how Trump could win it, in all honesty, even if it is only a lean. The state of Arizona, that's also going to tilt to Donald Trump. I think that Arizona is a state that I originally rid off for him, thought he had no chance there, but he's actually polling very well there, just like Georgia. He has been leading in basically every poll since the summer of 2023. I mean, I can't discount that as of now, even if I'm not as confident about Trump's chances in Arizona as I am in some of these other states, like Georgia, North Carolina. I think that Arizona has a large, they obviously have a large suburban, college-educated populace that used to be solidly Republican, now is sort of like a swing vote, maybe even favoring the Democrats. Like for example, in the Senate race, I don't think Kari Lake's going to win, but I think that Biden is very unpopular with those types of voters. I think they're not going to be as interested in voting for him as they were. I think Trump will make gains with Hispanics along the border, as he did in 2020. And I think that a lot of them may end up voting for like a third-party candidate like Jill Stein, RFK. I mean, the Green Party is on the ballot in Arizona. RFK is supposedly on the ballot in Arizona. And the thing is with Arizona, Trump has a high floor, but a very low ceiling. He's going to get 48, 49% of the vote no matter what you do. The question is, will Biden get that amount of votes, or that percentage of the vote, when you have Jill Stein on the ballot, when you have RFK on the ballot? And I think a lot of these suburban, like McCain Republican types, these moderates in the suburbs in like a Phoenix, Maricopa County, that part of the state, they're not going to be interested in voting for Biden. They disapprove of him on most metrics. They're going to vote for someone like RFK. They won't vote at all. So when you add all those factors in, I do think Trump narrowly takes the state. It's going to be close either way, and I think that's the state that I'm the least confident about, at least for now in my prediction, but we'll have to wait and see. Nevada, I'm going to put as lean Republican. I'm going back and forth between lean and tilt, but just like Georgia and Arizona, it's a state that Trump has been leading in the polls in basically the last 6-8 months or so. Republicans did fairly well there in the midterms of 2022, even when they collapsed in states like Arizona right next door. Republicans flipped the governorship in Nevada by a couple of points with Joe Lombardo, who is going to be campaigning for Trump. He's endorsed him. Adam Laxalt would have won if rural turnout was higher. Adam Laxalt did very well in Clark County. He held the line in Reno and the suburbs of that part of the state. So Nevada is a state that Republicans honestly should do very well in, and the only reason that we didn't win the Senate seat there in 2022 was because turnout in rural Nevada was down because of the snowstorm and because Trump wasn't on the ballot. When Trump isn't on the ballot, you see turnout in rural areas go down. We saw that in the Midwest, but all over the country. So with Trump on the ballot, with Republicans doing slightly better in the Las Vegas area as well as Reno, I do think Trump takes the state by about a point or so. So with that, we have the first, I guess, semi-official map. It's kind of a curse map with Pennsylvania going blue, some of the Sunbelt states going red. I'm sure this is going to change a lot as we get closer to the election. But yeah, I think it's a good start. I want to thank you all for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more.